Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about Warhammer The Old World. You see, we're very much expecting more news coming soon. It's not actually been so long since we've had a recent news dump by Games Workshop. Jumping in with a quick edit here as, yeah, funny enough, we got news yesterday. I was actually going to release this video yesterday, but then Games Workshop surprised us. So yeah, we're very much expecting news on a monthly basis now, I'd say. But the closer we get to Warhammer Fest, which is in April / the beginning of May, and the fact that this year is the 40th anniversary of Warhammer Fantasy, well, we're expecting a trailer at some point then, and we're expecting news to be more consistent. Now, one thing I generally stay away from is rumours. Yes, I'll cover them every now and then. However, since we're in the 40th anniversary, it's actually kind of curious because the rumours are getting louder and louder. I visit a lot of Warhammer Fantasy forums. I still discuss the tabletop game fairly often under various different names, as, well, I just like talking about the tabletop. I miss playing Warhammer Fantasy, I miss the thrill of new miniatures. And throughout these forums, rumours keep popping up from people claiming that they've got some sources, some people on the inside, which in all honesty is fairly possible considering that Games Workshop and leaks happen so often. Like, we find out stuff that's coming out 2-3 years in advance. This is for literally every setting, hence the whole Angron thing and a few others. And I want to talk about the rumours today, at least the ones that seem the loudest, as, yeah, they're kind of fun, and hell, if they're true, it would be quite interesting for the future of Warhammer The Old World. So, without further ado, let's begin. So the first big rumour, and possibly the one which is most likely to be true, is that old miniatures will come back. And by this I'm referring to the old lines that we had for Warhammer Fantasy, the old Orc Boys, all the stuff that is just no longer available anymore, will return for the launch of Warhammer The Old World so people can build up their armies. There were like, what, 16 army books back in the day for Warhammer 8th edition, so if it's the case that they want people playing their old armies, it's a good idea to bring back those old miniatures. I know some people would not like this considering that some of those miniatures did not age well, but some of them actually very much did. The Orc Boys, for example, were perfectly fine in my eyes, and I've got a lot of them, but I would still like a bunch more. The reason why people are thinking this and why the rumours started kicking off is because of artwork releases. We started seeing some artwork which was kind of tied to all the different races, some chariots, you know, Orc Boar Boy Riders, which another miniature that aged very well, Tomb King chariots, which were relatively new in a sense, but yeah, they all kind of look like box art. So nothing's really changed there, and this is a good thing, because a lot of those miniatures were fine. Now this doesn't mean that we won't get updated miniatures in the future, in the years to come, if Old World is popular, but this is the cheapest option for Games Workshop and probably the smartest one. This means that they can sell armies and not have to spend development time on creating loads of new miniatures for stuff that's already perfectly fine and they can just update down the line. Plus, we also have confirmation from Games Workshop that they want people to use their old miniatures. But speaking of old miniatures, there's something that we do need to talk about. There is a running rule that, yeah, the bases are going to increase. There's been some speculation and some rumours that the base sizes are going to get larger for Warhammer The Old World than they used to be in Warhammer Fantasy. So a bunch of units that used to be on the 20mm bases would now go to 25, the 25s would go to 30, and so on and so forth. Which is a thing that could help. There are a lot of units that were in Warhammer Fantasy that just did not rank up very well. Black Ark Corsairs were the prime example of that, then Bloodletters too. It's just a bit annoying, but this would also be a bit of a problem for a lot of players, as we all know that rebasing stuff can be a bit of an issue, as you could damage your miniatures and your paint jobs. Well, the miniatures is the most important thing, as you can always repaint, whilst trying to rip them off their base and put them on a new one. If everything got a base update, then it would be okay in terms of rules, as nothing would really change there in terms of how combat works and so on. But if only some certain things got base upgrades and some others didn't, that could change around the dynamic on how certain races would end up playing on the battlefield. This is also something that could be very much likely, considering that, yeah, every other setting for Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, 30k, 40k, we've seen units basically have their base size increased as new models eventually come out, because, you know, more detail. If I'm strictly speaking on a personal note, I really do not want a base update, mostly because I have a lot of armies, a stupid amount of armies, which I will be showcasing on this channel soon enough, but I don't want to rip everything up from the bases. I've done this before. I've used some miniatures and moved them around. And I don't want to do that again, especially for like my whole freaking collection. Like that will make me absolutely cry. I mean, if it happens, I'm gonna have to just do it anyway, but I will possibly cry. Unless a very talented creator comes up with a way to 3D print a extra base slot thing, you know, so you can just put the models in there, because that would be very helpful. Now we're going to talk about starting boxes, right? So like the starter kits and so on. So there's a lot of rumors revolving around 3 specific kits. One of them is the one that I actually believe the most. That is a Empire army set in a very similar style to how the 30k edition just launched, right? A big box, but just Empire units, similar to the 30k one where it was just all Space Marines. And the reason why is because the Empire is right now going through a massive civil war, so having a generic box of just Empire means that you could either split it with a friend and you could have, like, say, you could have a Sigmarite army, they could have an Aurikian army, or a Talabek army, or hell, even a Marienburg army, depends on that, or you could just buy the box for yourself and have a full 2,000 point list, if the 2,000 points is the average for Old World. We don't even know that just yet. Now I can imagine that this isn't going to sound like a very interesting box to a lot of people because it's just Empire, but Empire the big contenders here, and I think that this would be kind of cool. I'd be one of those people that would buy 1 or 2 of these boxes as, yeah, I could like to flesh out my Empire army more. I mostly have an Averland army on the tabletop, but I would like to do the other Imperial provinces too, especially if we get like new models here with upgrade sprues to focus on the other churches and the other cultures within the Empire. You could get a baseline body model and then just add in stuff like different arms, heads, and so on, just to be a different part of the Empire. The second box, which is actually kind of commonly heard, is the Bretonnians versus the Tomb Kings. Now this is something that I believe Chapter Master Varric also mentioned very recently, but the rumors of those have been going on for around 6 months or so. Yeah, it's been a while, and yeah, this actually sounds like a very good matchup, you know. Bretonnians versus Tomb Kings would be a pretty fun army, as the Tomb King stuff, some stuff could be updated. A lot of stuff is actually kind of good looking, in all honesty, and the Bretonnian stuff did age fairly well. It would just be better though if the large majority of the Bretonnian stuff did get updated from metal or, well, resin, if that's going to be the Forge World thing, to plastic, because, yeah, plastic's just easier to work with. Now, the last one that I heard of was actually very, very interesting, which is Kislev versus Khorne, and this has been a rumor that's been going on for around a year now, which is actually kind of surprising because it doesn't really make too much sense. Kislev is a new army, yes, but we don't really expect Kislev at the beginning. This is the thing. I'm expecting Kislev and Cafe to come out a little bit after the release because, well, they'll probably want to sell the old miniatures first. So I will imagine that the new army books, which would be Kislev, Cafe, and then the others, would probably come in fairly quick if the sales are good. A lot of this stuff is prepared very much early in advance. This is why we had, like, say, for example, leaks about Angron so long ago. So yeah, 3 different boxes, which is true? Well, I actually think that all of them could be true. The first one being the Empire one makes the most sense for a launch box. It just makes a lot of sense because it's been done before, and launch boxes are generally quite grand. The second and the third, well, those are stuff that we've seen before, right? We've seen that with boxes in Age of Sigmar, where they just bring out a box, a small force versus another small force, usually with something new. It's usually a character for some reason, but I imagine that it could bring new units in because this is a new system, and this could be brought in, you know, every quarter. We know that Games Workshop like releasing big box sets every quarter because it brings in a lot of money. So imagine a Tomb King versus Bretonnia box, which would bring in their respective army books and, yeah, you know, units that you can buy, and there you go, you can start playing. Or, well, maybe not a full army book, but just like the battle scrolls in a sense. That's what it's called in Age of Sigmar. We never really had those in Fantasy, but it could be possible to see them. I mean, what better way to announce Kislev's proper release with a box versus Khorne, where we could get some new Khornate units, and yeah, boxes like that sell. It's very, very obvious that they sell. Plus, it would be a reason for people to either, you know, split with a friend just in case, or just buy for themselves, like I would do. I would get one of those boxes just for myself, as I like to collect. I like to paint all the different armies because I find that quite fun. And boxes like that have so much potential that you could literally do any matchup. Games Workshop could really go ham here with the Forge World team and just do, like, say, Dwarfs versus Orcs, or Dwarfs versus Night Goblins, Skaven versus Empire, Skaven versus Skaven, because that's kind of what happens a lot. Just in general, you know, Dinesh versus High Elves, Zinch versus Cafe would be kind of interesting. There is a lot of general potential for these types of boxes, and I would buy them constantly. Now, we can't talk about army boxes and stuff without talking about army books, now can we? And I've heard two things which kind of sound quite positive, as they do mix up quite well. Apparently at the beginning, we will see rules being released for all the armies. This would echo that of Warhammer 40k 8th edition's index books, obviously Warhammer Fantasy's Ravaging Hordes. These would be a few books which would likely be divided by Order, Undeath, Destruction, Chaos, with possibly Neutral being lumped in with Undeath, as there's not that many undead factions. Now, the rumors don't exactly say what factions would be there, and it's just a very educated guess. I don't imagine that Cafe Kislev and the possibility of the Vampire Coast, which we'll talk about a bit later on, being in said books, as those would probably come under a big release, as they never had armies, full armies for 8th edition or any other older edition, so only the older armies would get this, and I think that would be working out quite well, because, again, it would just be a book with no fluff, no lore or anything. It's just, this is the Empire, these are the rules. In the same book, there would be the High Elves, the Wood Elves, Bretonnia, the Dwarfs, you know. And it would just have the new rules, the new stats, the new point costs, all the usual stuff, just to get you going. Maybe a little bit of lore, because I do remember the 8th edition 40k index is having a little bit of lore, not a lot, but enough to kind of give you a little bit of context. Though, mind you, certain creators like myself will be dropping lore videos to give you context about what's happening with those races around that time and all that type of stuff. Then there's the talk about proper army books, which, yeah, we're expecting, and it's very likely we'll get like an army book every month or so, if everything's been beta tested properly, or maybe even 2 months, but it just kind of makes sense, as a big book would then bring in more fluff. It would then possibly start mentioning new units, because there's certain points where we do get books which have rules for units that aren't even released yet. Like, for example, the Horus Heresy had that with Abaddon Ascended, which I believe at the time of recording this video, Abaddon's already out, but you get what I mean. Like, 30k had been around for a while already, and we just didn't have access to Abaddon Ascended or certain other units. So I see that happening very often. It could be every 3 months if they want to do every quarter, because there are a lot of army books, and Games Workshop are kind of slow. However, their release timings have been a lot better now. I mean, they did a lot for Age of Sigmar very recently with new army books. I think 40k had a very fast reveal when it was at the beginning of the 9th edition stuff. So it could very much be possible that this will also happen for Warhammer The Old World if they're expecting it to sell well. I imagine it going slower if it's not selling so well, but if they are good for the promotion, they should be fine. Another big thing that has been echoed a lot, and it's also something that the fans actually do want a lot, is cross-compatibility with Age of Sigmar. Right now, we do have that a lot with 30k and 40k, but what people want for Old World is to get some of the miniatures from Age of Sigmar down to Warhammer Fantasy. And of course, I'm mentioning here stuff that actually fits with the Warhammer Fantasy world and not the Sigmarines, so you know, this would be the new Saurus that recently got announced. We're expecting a massive reboot to the Lizardmen roster, I believe summer this year for Age of Sigmar. Those miniatures would clearly work for Warhammer The Old World, considering that, yeah, it's the same unit, it's the same thing. The only big problem is that those miniatures might be a bit too large, which might link up to the rumors of the base sizes changing. We're going to have to wait and see when we actually get to see if they rank up or not. Mind you, a lot of the new Chaos Warrior stuff actually does rank on their old 25mm base and 25x50s when it came to the cavalry. So it is a waiting game, but I would love some of those miniatures coming back. It's the same thing that we know that the Cities of Sigmar, which is like, you know, the Empire for Age of Sigmar, is getting a massive reboot. Well, it would be great if a bunch of those things, if it fits with the timeline, gets brought back and gets used. In my personal thoughts, I don't mind either way. I'm happy with the old miniatures, but I know some people aren't. As long as they're the same size, I'm happy, because that means kit bashing is going to be freely available, which will help not just the Old World people, but also the Age of Sigmar players. And then everyone's happy, right? And for the last rumor that I've been hearing, and I'm hoping is very much true, keep in mind these are all rumors, so take everything with a pinch of salt, the possibility of new armies. Now, we've already got 2 new armies confirmed for our setting. We've got Kizev, we've got Cafe, both of which are massive, and hell, I'm super excited. If they look as good as the actual models in Total War Warhammer, I could see myself building up a Kizev and Cafe army. A big if there because you never know, but the concept art seems to make us believe that it will. Now, yes, those are 2 already new ones, but there are many other unique factions that we just haven't seen just yet. The big one is the Vampire Coast, which did have a supplement back in 6th edition, but not a full army, yet now has a lot of stuff that was approved by Games Workshop for a DLC for Total War Warhammer 2. We have a full faction now, which would lead to a possibility of an army book, and that would be great, but not just that. Nippon, Ind, Koresh, Araby, the Southern Realms, a big thing that I've been hearing is that we will see Southern Realm stuff. And all of that makes sense considering that Games Workshop did kind of show off New Herald, and not only that, we have seen a lot of lore being updated by Cubicle 7, which is stuff that needs to be approved by Games Workshop when it comes to Talia and Estalia, hell, even a little bit of Araby. So there is a lot there. There is an absolute lot to suggest that we might get loads of races and factions, provided that this stuff is popular. Though I imagine that these things will already have some sort of concept art being done, because DLC for Warhammer 3 will also affect that. Plus, a big thing here is that, well, a lot of people are going to have armies coming into Old World, right? I, for example, have every single army, but I know loads of people who have 1, 2, or 3 armies, and they're not going to want to buy units just to update their current stuff because, yeah, you know, they've got their armies, they've got enough points, for example. Like, I'm going to be perfectly honest, if they come up with a new army for, say, my Bretonnians, which I have a decent amount done, painted and everything, I've got around 10k points of Bretonnia, I'm not going to buy new Bretonnian stuff unless it's new units, right? Completely new, with new weapons and all that type of stuff. Now, I will buy more Orc Boys, but that's because I need more Orc Boys, but I don't need more Knights of the Realm. I'm just using myself as an example because I am horrendously addicted to buying Warhammer, it seems. But what would be the best way to sell me loads of stuff? A new army. Kizev and Cafe haven't been released yet, and I'm already thinking, yeah, I'm going to put a lot of money aside and I'm going to buy whole armies of them, because I want armies of them. But Ind, Koresh, Nippon, those would also get my money, or even the Southern Realms, any of the Southern Realms. I would buy stupid amounts of new miniatures for armies that were just never released, and I really want. Let's be honest, I'm not the only one. I'm talking about a lot of you listening right now. You're going to instantly buy a Araby army, for example, or a Talia army, for example. It's just one of those things. Games Workshop also know how popular certain books like the Warhammer Armies project is, with all the different types of armies, because they even mention the Warhammer Armies project in one of their old surveys. So yeah, they are aware that people want new stuff, and this is going to be the best way to actually bring out some new stuff for it. Again, it's a waiting game and we'll have to wait and see, but these rumors are very, very believable. Hopefully we'll get some context around Warhammer Fest. I'm really hoping so, because I'm flying to Warhammer Fest myself, and I'd love to see a trailer. But with all that being said, what do you guys think about all the rumors? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. Are there any rumors that I might have missed? I'd love to hear them, as really, I'm excited, man. I'm painting a box a day. A literal box a day. Sometimes it's just like one character, but I'm counting that as a box. Or very recently I've just done a squad of Blood Crushers because, you know, I kind of have too many of them and I kind of want to get them out of the way so I can focus on another army. Because what I like to do nowadays is focus one army, get it fully done, and then work on the next one. So yeah, let's talk tabletop. We don't do that as often as I would like to on this channel, and once we get closer and closer to an official release, or hell, even just more news, we will definitely talk about it more. But yeah, have a nice day guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.